Hey, Reef Builders, and welcome back to another session of Reef Therapy. Today, we are celebrating a milestone. It's actually the first time that Salem joined us right here on Reef Therapy, and it was exactly 1 year ago.
Woo!
Wow, he's still here.
I don't
Surprisingly.
know. I really don't know how.
Heavily working in the Reef Builders space, which is awesome. So we talked all about the bacterial microbiome. We talked about coral pathogens, the coral holobiont. Raj and Salem got into an argument. So I thought it would be a good idea to revisit this now a year later, the coral microbiome, and just see what's changed and, things that we can talk about because I feel like I've become more knowledgeable just kind of being around you for a year and hearing all the things that you talk about on a daily basis. So there's got to be some things that we can talk about. But before we get any further, I have a little gift that I want to unwrap for everyone here on Reef Therapy. For those that have been listening to Reef Therapy for a while, you probably know that Raj has been in the longest aquarium build of the century. So I just want to play just a little clip from exactly 1 year ago today. Raj, how's the office tank coming along or not coming along, as it were?
Oh, it's coming along. It's
Nice.
definitely coming along. Sump is in production, and I was spending this whole week working on lighting and going through all the different options. I've had my dilemma of we're right at that stage of the year where new products are going to launch, and I don't want to buy into a product and then like the next week the new one is out.
So,
son of a bitch.
did you, now that we've been through several light iterations from companies,
Wait.
Are you ready to buy in now?
Sump was in production, but Sump is completed now. Okay.
Sump is complete.
I made progress. That is verifiable that it was only in production then, and now it's complete. It's ready to go.
It made an appearance
That's
at Restock Chattanooga. It was like one of those celebrities that you hire, like a Paris Hilton, to like show up to your bar party, and she just shows up for like $5,000. Well, there it was, Raj's Sump at the MRC booth at Restock Chattanooga.
There was a secret contest going on, and if you took your selfie with the Sump and then posted it on social media, we were going to pick a random winner for $5,000, but nobody did that. So you guys missed out.
This was discussed internally for quite a long time.
Are you serious?
Yes. Seriously, I was carrying
Did you
around
miss the
$5,000
restock meeting?
in cash in my pocket. I wasn't just happy to see you. It was just cash. It was a wad of cash in my pocket.
He put it on the reactor. Did you not see it? That's where it went.
It was all there. It was there.
I must have missed that. I think we were disqualified anyway, right? Because we're employees of Rebuilders.
Definitely.
I mean, I got a whole video with Raj there at the booth. Does that count or no?
Is there a video? I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Shallow video. You took me through your sump, and we learned all about the everything.
I think the video is about as real as the tank.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I don't think it's anywhere.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Well, now there is a lot of cool new lights that are out and coming out, and it's. I was right. Damn it! Because look at all the cool stuff that's out. There's just so much now to play with, and now what's going to happen in the next 30 to 45 days? Is there other cool lights that are going to drop?
So we're hearing a spring 2025 question mark is what I'm hearing.
I'll take the winner to build it.
I almost posted on the Reef Builders post when we were talking about, show us your clean installs, like understand. And I was going to take a picture under the stand of my tank and stand there going, because it's nice and clean. But, it's very much lacking in any of the equipment there.
I was going to say, is it clean because there's nothing there?
There's nothing.
There's an absence.
There's nothing there. I haven't even put the sump in the stand. It's just sitting in front of the stand because I still have to cut that hole on the side for access. But I've been so busy working on other projects. I am truly amazed though at the modern reefer, because like kids. Okay. I have more kid activities to do than we ever had when I was younger. So how is the modern reefer keeping up with all of that between work, doing all the kid stuff? I mean, all the sports and other extracurricular activities, and then have time to reef. It's kind of mind boggling. I'm impressed because I am
Yeah.
very much failing. And my favorite part too, is building and designing. That's my favorite part. I just want to build systems and then pass them off and then build another one. Just be in a constant state of building and designing.
Is this your rock? You're pushing up the hill? Is it you're constantly and will forever be designing and planning your tank to extract joy? You will never finish it? Is that what this is?
But that's the fun part. That's why I like what I do, because I get to do that on a daily basis anyway. And I get to play and just design all these fantastic aquariums all over the world. But yeah, now I really have fallen behind on mine, haven't I?
It's been a year.
I think I need an accountability partner is what I need.
How about when so I've had a tank for 2 years that has just been empty. And when I get that filled, then you need to have your tank filled. Oh, wait, it's filled. I will say though, you do bring up a good point though. And that like just having like being a dad and having the sports things to go to, or being a mom and having all the things that you have to go to for your kids, it's super hard. Like it literally took 2 years to get water in that tank and some inspiration behind it, which direction I wanted to go with it and everything. But that video is coming out this week. Excited for the Solomon Islands inspired reef tank.
So I'm going to, all right, Nicole, you're on. You're one of my accountability partners, so she's been called out. Somebody has to keep me on track so I can get some progress made by the end of year. Okay.
Who's Nicole?
Yeah, I was like, who the hell is Nicole?
Is going to keep me in check. She's going to keep me in check. I promise.
I'm so sorry to offend Nicole here. But
Nicole's about to comment and like,
affiliation. She is. She's gonna.
I don't think Nicole's real, man.
That's the perfect accountability partner, because now I can blame her.
Nicole's fault.
It's all Nicole's fault. See, so now if in the next 60 days I haven't made any progress, it's Nicole's fault. It's not my fault. The buck has been passed.
I hope every Nicole in the industry comments on this video.
Before we get into the main talk, I do want to discuss just briefly, because you were featured in a Reef Builders video a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago now. You went to Brazil. You've got a cool build there that's been going on for the last couple years. Do you know anything more about that for the people that have watched that video? Because it's cement right now. There's not a whole lot going on. Do they have a completion date? Do they have any of that they're shooting for?
So completion date is supposed to be end of Q1 next year. I don't really see that happening because things just happen, and progress is slow. There was an issue. Not with the tank per se, but with the house and just on the supports. Engineering spec'd it one way, and when they came to inspect it, the inspector decided he's going to overrule the plans that were approved and said, well, you got to change it. And that's a big setback. So it's over 6 months of delays on just changing that one thing that was already done. And so it's delays like that where nothing else can now happen, because that part has to be redone. And in construction, you get delays like that, but it just seems to be that the larger scale the project, the larger those delays and problems become. But we have started discussing flow rates and kind of planning that out. So kind of finalizing what pumps are going to be used, as that's gone through multiple different iterations there. But now that we know that there really aren't any surprises, the filter room is where the filter room is and the tank is where the tank is. There's no moving those things. So we can actually start cementing those down. But I do have pictures of the tank before it got to the stage that you saw it. So I can share those. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah.
It's a 10,000 gallons, right? So it's large.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are all of
And
those delays also Nicole's fault?
Well, you know, if she was the accountability partner, it would be Nicole's fault.
Brazilian government, come on.
he mentioned a lot of Gustav, the homeowner, right? That's his name,
Gustavo.
Gustavo. He mentioned a lot of different fish that he wanted in that aquarium. Does he
Yeah.
have kind of a direction that he wants to go, or is it just kind of like we need to get to that point where the water's in the tank and then the rockscapes in, and then we figure out from there?
Pretty much. I mean, he has a game plan of, he's got his wish list, right? He's got his favorite fish, just like we all do. We have the fish that we want to get in our tanks, but in a tank that large, you're going to need a lot more than that. So, you know, we'll figure out that stocking plan as we get closer to actually stocking the tank. And then just it'll be limited to what's available or what can be brought into Brazil too. So there's always that to contend with, and their import duties and fees are pretty high. So everything is, you know, at least quadruple what it should be.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed when you went to the shop. It was expensive. It was coral, and I even did, because I forget what their currency is called, but I did the conversion to US, and I was like, dang, that Scully's like $700.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
Ricardo's store is amazing too. He's done
Yeah,
a
it was great.
fantastic job there. It's a really, really cool store.
Yeah. He's got that front tank when you walk in is so neat. If you haven't seen the video, definitely check out the video on the Reef Builders main channel. But we need more videos from Raj's high-end clientele. So,
well, you know, when we come down to Atlanta, we can go film something there, and there's a couple of projects coming up in the pipeline that we should go film.
cool.
Be fun.
Sounds like we're going to Ludacris's house. I like it. Well, let's dive in. It's been a year that Salem has been on the Reef Builders team, and maybe a little bit over a year. I think you might have started writing before we did the Reef Therapy episode. But for those that haven't listened to episode 83, give us a brief overview of the coral holobiont and the bacterial microbiome, just so we can get everybody up to speed on the general, like what we talked about in that first episode.
All right, I got to think about how to keep this brief. Okay, yeah, so corals are an ecosystem and of themselves. They encompass all domains of life. Coral can't live without bacteria, viruses, protozoans, archaea. They're like a little microscopic realm. If you mess up that realm, they die. That is the TLDR, as simple as I can put it. We delved into much deeper weeds on that podcast. It would take me like 30 hours to fully explain it all. But coral need bacteria. They are just as much bacteria as they are animal. Just as important as their zooxanthellae. Got to keep the bacteria happy to keep them alive.
Very good. Okay. And if you want to dive deeper, episode 83, we dive down that rabbit hole. So what are the things that are still bad for a healthy microbiome?
Antibiotics, definitely. When used incorrectly, without diagnosis, antibiotics will nuke everything. High organics are also pretty bad. So dissolved organic carbon being very high. People that don't do water changes are definitely in trouble. People that feed a lot and don't have nutrient export that's equivalent to that are in trouble. I think amino acids are very bad. Very, very bad. No amino acids. And I can explain that later. So I think having aquacultured coral is very important. I think that can lead to more success because they're typically hardier. But wild coral could actually introduce a lot of good bacteria to the system. Like, you know, a lot of people are really, really anal about wild coral, which for good reason, because of red bugs and flatworms and all of those types of pests. But there's not really as many bacterial problems that come from those pieces compared to the bigger pests. So, you know, a lot of people are really afraid to throw fresh pieces in their tank, but it might actually do better than you think. So those are kind of like the ones that are bad: is dirty tank, nuking the microbiome, getting coral that is just, you know, over quarantined, dipped in a billion things. Hydrogen peroxide is definitely bad. Fluconazole might be bad as well because it kills fungus, and there's some good fungi too. So any type of chemical in your tank that's like a biocidal thing is not good.
I did an update on the Red Sea on the Reef Builders main channel, and I've got some cyano right now. It's actually subsided a lot over the past couple weeks, which is nice. But I had mentioned the product that everybody uses for cyano, just to get rid of it, just to knock it out, no questions asked. It's gonna work, that kind of thing. But it is a broad spectrum antibiotic, correct? So if we're talking about broad spectrum antibiotics, we don't, it might be killing what we want it to kill for aesthetic reasons, but what else is it killing, right? And I got a question about that on the actual video that said, well, why would you want to stay away from that? And I kind of explained it. Could you piggyback on that and reiterate some of those points?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's a band-aid solution that does more harm than good. So cyano will grow because it's a copiotroph. It likes high dissolved organic carbon. You've got the correct environment for it to flourish, just like you would have the correct environment for algae to flourish if your nutrients are out of control, your inorganic nutrients. If you get those down, you've solved the root cause of the issue. If you've not solved that issue, you can nuke algae like you can with fluconazole, or you can nuke cyanobacteria with erythromycin or azithromycin or any of those, but it's going to come back eventually. And it's going to have a lot of it's not discriminatory, right? It's going to kill all of the good things too that help the coral with nutrient cycling, defending them against pathogens, overall health, even leads to their coloration. A lot of these bacteria can recruit certain inorganic compounds and trace elements and lead to that basically giving it to the coral so then they can develop different pigments. So the coloration we see from coral also comes from the microbiome. So if you want shitty colored coral and coral that's more likely to die, go ahead and use the company that will not be named.
Well, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I mean, we see these in our daily lives, right? We're told eat clean, and non-processed foods. Don't put those chemicals in your body. Have an exercise plan of some sort, and get enough sleep, and you generally be in good health. But we don't want to do that. We want to eat processed foods and junk food, and really not exercise. And what's the cure? A handful or fistful of different pills. That's band-aiding the problem, and it's no different than our tanks.
Yeah, you got to have good husbandry to have success. And
Yeah.
people just don't want to do the work, is what it seems like.
It's hard work, right? It's hard work to
Yeah.
go to the gym and get in shape. It's hard work to eat clean. It's much easier. Like I turned vegetarian like 15 years ago, something like that, and it was an extraordinarily difficult thing to do, especially then, because it's so much easier to just eat meats. They're available everywhere, every fast food place or every restaurant you can go. And especially if you were traveling a lot for work, like I was, you could just find food wherever you were. And I was going to the Midwest a lot then, and there was really nothing for me to eat. I survived off the kids' menu and grilled cheese sandwiches. But there's only so many of those you can eat before you're going to die. So that was pretty tough.
Yeah, they we have the pink stuff that's always kind of prescribed to the kids for whatever, amoxicillin, or gosh, I forget. There's like 3 or 4 of them that they just kind of cycle through. They're like, oh, you did amoxicillin last time, yeah, we're gonna do this one this time, and then this one this time, and please finish the entire bottle before you go on. And that's all part of it, right?
Yep.
Don't pour it down the drain, all those things, and there's reasons for all of that, and it's kind of weird to think about that same style, that same tactic used in our reef tanks. But that's exactly what's going on, right? Like you said, Salem, it's a Band-Aid. It will come back unless you fix the root of it. Well, how do we fix the root of it?
Discipline is key to a good microbiome. You got to do a water change, most likely. Got to keep the dissolved organic carbon low. If you want any of the good bacteria to grow, they're all oligotrophic. They like low carbon environments, just like the natural reefs. Very clean water. Not now, but 100 years ago, definitely. So keep the water clean. Those types of microbes will grow. If you keep the water dirty, then the other microbes that are typically pathogenic will outcompete those good guys. And the bad thing is the good guys you can't add in a bottle. There's no bottle on the market that has these in it. And also, they grow very slow and they die very easily. So you can lose them quite fast, whereas any of the bad guys are in every tank, every bottle, every piece of rock, on your hands. They're always going to be there, and they live, and they're very hardy. So got to
Yeah.
do a water change. That's about
Well,
it.
before we get into the things that you may have changed your mind on, or maybe data has presented itself in the past year that has changed a little bit of how we think about the bacterial microbiome. You had mentioned bottled bacteria, and I think that's one thing that I've learned so much about over the past year is now that hobbyists have the capability of testing what's in these bottled bacteria products, and you're finding that it's, very low diversity, maybe just a couple different strains of bacteria that's not even found in the ocean, right? Or maybe we're even seeing some pathogen, like human pathogens, that have made it into some of these bottles. Obviously, Jim Telegram, if you don't know him on the interwebs, he's tested a lot of these products, and this is a sample size of one bottle, so we don't have a wide selection here. That's not like a perfect experiment by any means, but there's been a lot of contamination, and that's kind of scary, right? um please
Yeah.
expand on this.
I mean, my concern with obviously sample size of one sucks, but there's also the chain of custody. Right? What did he send the sample in? How was it handled beforehand or in between? Was it contaminated with his handling? I mean, all of those are normal things that, with a proper scientific method, are all going to be controlled for.
Yeah, if
So,
you're not using aseptic technique, there could always be the chance of contamination. The thing is, though, so to play devil's advocate, obviously there's a lot of probability that needs to be filtered here to where we probably need to look at a larger sample size and use complete aseptic technique to really get an answer here. But assuming that Jim did those things in this instance, even if it is a sample size of one, if there is that contamination in one batch, likely the entire manufacturing process is getting contamination throughout every single batch. Even if it's a different type of contamination, that indicates there's not proper aseptic technique. So something could be getting introduced that is not a target microbe or a microbe of interest in each of these batches. So, we're not going to name names. You can go look up the results on Humblefish if you want from Jim. But I mean, there was some pretty alarming stuff if it ends up being systemic to all of these companies. I mean, there was MRSA, antibiotic resistant Staphylococcus aureus, like really bad stuff that's killing a lot of people right now. There was Serratia marcescens, which is like a human gastrointestinal pathogen, which also affects coral. It's a coral pathogen. There was strep. I mean, there was like a lot of stuff. So nothing good, and it's stuff that could actually be quite a large threat to human health, especially if someone is immunocompromised. And then you throw in, the concoction on top of that, where people are going and taking these bottles and culturing them in their own homes and then pouring it in their tanks, growing these, low density cultures to very high cell counts. Yeah, I mean, this is going to kill someone if it's actually there. It's a problem.
and that's so it's interesting the fact of all what he's discovered, and it definitely indicates that, hey, we need to take a closer look here, right?
Yeah.
Let's do some more testing. Let's get some different samples here. And this is a big opportunity for people to say, whoa, okay, I'm handling stuff that I shouldn't be handling. And for the manufacturers to look at their processes, but there's the big if those things actually exist in that product.
Yeah, there's definitely not enough evidence to hold up in court or anything like that. This is all a big speculative thing, but I think that it warrants more consideration. Definitely need to look deeper, get a proper sample size, correct study to really audit this. But, that's a lot of money. Will it happen? Who knows?
But what's great is the fact that we could actually do this. The fact that a consumer can get a product and send it off for testing and saying, what is it that I am handling and putting in my tank? So in the sport supplement industry, and actually all supplement industry, this is the contamination aside, but you have two problems. One, proprietary blends, right? These manufacturers don't tell you what's in it, and they just give you a list, but not really what proportion or how many grams of that stuff is in it. And you find out that it's very, very low. Then you have the contamination end of it. So I've worked with a couple of these companies, and it's disturbing the contamination that is in those supplements and things that we are directly putting into our bodies. And you look at some of the storage facilities for these raw ingredients and just the level of mold, and it's pretty gross. It's really, really gross. And at least in that end, it's a very much you get what you pay for situation, where you buy the bottom of the barrel brand of supplement, you're going to get the garbage of the garbage, like the lowest of the low, into your body. But nobody is actually testing that stuff that I know of in that end. The vitamins that people take, I'm not big into taking that kind of stuff. I think you can get it all from food, but people take vitamins all day, every day. But I don't know. Do people test it?
Yeah, that's pretty hard to test for. Like the only real, you'd have to use like gas chromatography and stuff. And the only real industry that has like a third party testing service for that is like marijuana, right? When you process that, put it in like or like vape, the vape industry, any of the vape juices, they're testing that for pesticides and stuff. But that's really,
but the consumer isn't sending that off to a lab to say, hey, test this vape that I'm about to suck down.
Yeah.
Nobody does that, right?
No.
They're just like, hey, screw it. I'm going to die anyway.
How twisted humankind is, right? We are getting gas chromatography done on cannabis products, but we cannot get it in the supplement world. Want to help themselves, right?
Hey, we're testing reef products, but we're not testing the stuff that we actually eat. That's crazy, but kind of cool in the same sense.
Yeah,
I think of giant, like you walk into a warehouse and you just see exposed giant piles of like whey protein, like chocolate.
That's exactly what I imagine. Yeah.
And I don't know why, and it may or may not be that way. It's probably not that way.
Some of the photographs that I've seen, it's not the whey, but creatine was one of those. It is exactly like that. There's a pile, and then you get super sacks that are sitting there, but they're not in a controlled environment, so it's damp and it's nasty, and it's every bit as gross as you were imagining.
That's not good.
Yeah. And I think what prompts all of this is the quote proprietary blend, the not putting what is in this product on the side of the bottle that you're putting into your tank. And I think that's what's got people curious, right? What am I exposing these animals that I'm taking care of? Because at the end of the day, we've got fish and coral and inverts in our care. They've either been taken from the ocean or captively bred or whatever, but the humane thing to do is to keep them as healthy as we possibly can while they're in our care. And I think that's what's got people a lot of people curious as to, what we're actually putting in our tanks. I think there's two different categories here though, Salem, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's the starter bacteria or the nitrifiers, and I would say that most of those bottled products are okay to get the cycle started, to get that whole thing started. It's the maintenance part, the dosing of bacteria after you've got a mature tank. You're saying there really isn't a product out there right now that we can put a bunch of Pelagibacter in our tanks right now. It's not out there.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it I think is just based off of a lot like ignorance. This is a lot of new research that's like came out last 5 years. So companies Googled probiotic and saw the term and said, we can buy this from China or a biotech company and put it in a bottle, and it ought to work for coral too. And the thing is, a lot of these strains of bacteria, the bacillus in particular, that are in most of these clean blends or maintenance blends, are good for fish. These are things that are used in fish and shrimp hatcheries, and they actually can be quite productive and have a probiotic effect for fish. The question is, though, can they have a positive benefit to coral? There are some species of bacillus that are found in very low populations in coral's mucus and gastrointestinal lining, but the question is, do those strains produce the same metabolites as the strains that are isolated from wheat fields that are grown in mass by a biotech company and sold from China that these companies buy, put in a bottle, and then sell you on the shelf for a marked up rate? Probably not. And if not, we don't know. So, I mean, in my mind, we're putting the incorrect strains in. We have no idea what the longitudinal effect of them is downstream. Most of them might not be even live in salt water. So they'll like live for a generation and lower your nitrates and phosphates and then completely mess up, the entire population of everything else and outcompete stuff while they're alive. If they do live, what's happening downstream? And then I don't know. There's just there's like 1,000 questions I can think of, and no one has answers. Besides, it's going to fix all of your problems, and that's some radium doctor stuff, At that point, and I'm just, I don't know. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of no data. Some of the companies we pressed on this released some statements, and they gave papers saying, well, this is a probiotic because it's been used in some zoo animals to suggest very, very beneficial effects. All right, those are complex eukaryotic organisms with a gastrointestinal tract that are very similar to our own. They are not a single polyp with barely even a stomach that are primordial animals that have existed for life, as life on this planet for billions of years. Completely different types of organisms, completely different bacterial associations. And the good bacteria, the really good ones, are Pelagibacter and Endozoicomonas. And only like 5 labs in the world have even grown these strains. It has like a 5-day doubling time for them. The only media that's ever been developed, it can only grow like a quarter of the strains that can even be isolated. And this is the most common bacteria in the ocean. And literally millions of dollars have been thrown into grant money. We can't grow it yet. No one has this in a bottle. If you're adding Cipro to your tank or an antibiotic and nuking the microbiome, and then you're adding in a clean blend of 7 strains for biodiversity to fix all the damage you've done, you're not fixing anything. You're probably making the problem worse and introducing what is akin to an invasive species and complicating everything. Basically, it's really asinine, and I don't understand any of this, man. I don't. It makes no sense to me at all. And no one knows this stuff because no one wants you to know this stuff. It is a conspiracy.
Did you send me a photo of bacillus in an energy drink that you had?
Yeah. Dude, the human probiotic industry, like same thing. It's all Bacillus subtilis and lactobacillus, and there's no longitudinal or peer-reviewed studies that show that it's actually good for human gut microbiota, like at all.
But that's the beauty of marketing. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to say probiotic, and then all of a sudden people are going to flock to it and buy it.
Yeah.
And you get the flavor of the month. I remember it was pomegranate for a while. Everybody was all about the pomegranate, and it's acai, and what's next? There's always something next.
Probably passion fruit.
Passion fruit.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like, good microbiome for humans. You eat fermented foods, kimchi, yogurt.
Kombucha. Somebody told me I should drink
Yeah.
kombucha today, and I was very upset.
Like that.
How dare you?
Yeah, no. That's the thing, though, is like think about what you're adding to your body there. There's a very diverse community of microbes, which has been indigenous to the human microbiome because it's been part of our food culturally for a very long time. We've fermented foods forever.
Yeah.
Compare that to you're adding 1 billion colony forming units of one strain of bacteria that's never really been associated with the human gut. Completely different beast. It's akin to adding live rock to a tank from the ocean or live sand versus this blended bottle of who knows what.
Mm-hmm.
There's a better way to
delicious.
Do it. Yeah.
Kimchi.
I like
delicious.
kimchi.
Yeah.
Kimchi's awesome.
Yeah. I've never had kimchi.
You should try it. We need to get you some like bibimbap or something, man. Get some Korean food in you.
Big time.
Let's go. I'm ready. Let's go back to anything that you feel like has changed opinion-wise on your end, or you've seen new data in the past year that has changed how you felt in the beginning about this. I don't know. Maybe if you're stumped, I kind of point to the NDOC article that you wrote. I feel like maybe some of that wasn't stuff that you had thought of in the beginning, but then you went to the Bahamas and you're like, it all makes sense now.
Yeah. Essentially, how right am I?
I was getting to that. So I was gonna say, well, there's good luck for Raj. The first time I came on here, there was fear in his eyes and in his voice that I sensed and saw when we had our first conversation about low micron filtration. And I do think that there might be a place for low micron filtration now. Very low micron filtration, but only intermittently. So a lot of the dissolved organic carbon pool is also particulate organic carbon. Before it breaks down into its completely dissolved function, you've got small granules, stuff like that. And theoretically, if you had like a 5 or 10 or maybe even 30 micron filter, you could remove that. And it just so happens Raj does sell those filters. so
That's right.
so we had this. I learned this fairly recently that his roller mats are the lowest micron on the market, and I said, "Son of a bitch." So now we are here. Here's the thing, though. I think that it could strip a lot of good out of the water, but I think if you've got a tank that's already messed up and has high DOC, you don't have a lot of good in the water. You got to get the DOC down, and heavy mechanical filtration can assist with that.
And
For
that's what you
reference,
argued
before we get
last
too
time.
far in, a Red Sea roller mat filter, which I think a lot of people are know what I'm talking about when I say that, is a 200 micron size. So that's for reference. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing something, but it's definitely not completely polishing all of these particulates out of the water, which could be important. But I guess it is what I advocated last time. I said that it could be used in sparingly. So I think, it would be cool to hook up a roller mat at the studio and then have low micron on there and send an NDOC test and actually track the dissolved organic carbon as it kind of goes down with that. And you could switch out micron sizes and graph it up or down and then track the microbiome too. I think there'd be a pretty tight correlation between all of that. So I think it's like you run lower micron if you've got high DOC or low ORP or whatever indicator you use for organics. And then as it begins to climb up, you switch to higher micron filtration to let the good stuff kind of breathe in the system. I don't know. It's probably a tool for a job type of thing. Skimmers are good. Skimmers probably remove stuff from the water, but also they remove dissolved organics. And they also introduce oxygen to the system. It's only hydrophobic dissolved organics, though, not hydrophilic. And if your sugars are not going to get out, but some more like aromatic compounds are going to get taken out by a skimmer. Like 20% of the pool is going to get taken out by a skimmer. So then you got to figure out how to get the rest of the 80% out. So maybe low micron filtration could do that. I think UV and ozone are still bad. I think they're even worse now because a lot of the dissolved organic carbon pool, like basically, here's all the dissolved organic carbon in the system. Like this much, like 40% of it is liable, meaning it can be metabolized and eaten by microbes and fuel their growth. The rest of it is non-liable, is refractory, meaning it cannot be touched. It's too complex of a molecule to be eaten. Ozone and UV both will break down these refractory molecules into smaller pieces, which then feeds into the labile pool and allows for microbes to eat them. So you're overall decreasing your DOC, but that's because you're feeding bacteria which eat them, and those bacteria are the bad bacteria. So probably using something like granular activated carbon and a skimmer, and then low micron filtration. And I think roller mats are the best option to do it. If you have like a filter sock, you're still going to have all of those particulate organic compounds in the water, which will degrade and break down into more and more simple forms and feed everything. But if you got a roller mat, it literally takes it out of the system. So I think roller mats are probably the sauce. Probably.
So if I go from 200 micron to 30,
you have to change it in like a day for sure.
Exactly. So so theoretically, I'm going to have to be changing that roller mat out a lot more than what I would typically do. What if I ran the 200 micron and then another roller mat in my sump that was further down in the pathway for the water that was like a 30 or a 10 or a 5?
Okay, I kind of like the sequential micron like dropping down. That's actually kind of a good idea. Maybe I don't. How would you engineer that, Raj? Could that be done easily?
So we've done sumps like that where you have different levels of filter socks. So you're going to get through your 200 micron first, and then go down to 100, down to 50, and down to 5 if that's what you wanted. So that's pretty much what you would do. Is you'd have your one roller mat, than feeding the second roller mat. So yeah, you would burn your 30 micron a little bit less, but would it be enough to compensate for having to now deal with 2 roller mats versus just the one?
I would like one of these engineered for the Reef
Right.
Builder studio. I am very
Look,
curious.
it all comes back. It all comes around to it's going to take work, right? Nothing comes easy.
Yeah.
And if you want to get that polishing and you want to use a 30 micron filter, well, you're going to go through the media a little bit faster and you're going to have to change it more often. It's just
that's
There's
you
no
know,
way around it.
I said like water changes, dilution is the ultimate and easiest solution here. But there were, after me saying that, there were concerns, for people like on the West Coast that have like really strict water usage regulations of like, this could be not practical for you with huge systems. In which case, yeah, probably roller mats and just a ton of carbon and
Well,
a really
huge
big
systems,
skimmer.
it's very difficult no matter where you are to do large water changes. But yeah,
Yeah.
your simplest solution is always water changes, but that's manual labor to do, right? And you're only exporting just in that moment that you're doing the water change. The
Yeah.
beauty of all of the equipment is, one, you don't have to do it, and two, it's working 24/7. So your protein skimmer is pulling those nutrients out all day, every day. Your roller mat does the same thing. If you're using filter socks, they're doing the same thing. But like you said, the filter sock still leaves those solids submerged and allows them to continue to break down in the water column. So at least the roller mat is pulling them physically out of the water.
Yeah, I think another really intriguing option. This is Bob Sark from ESV. He's way better at
Bob is
chemistry
great.
than I am. Bob's awesome. He read my article and was talking. He's been all excited about DOC lately, and he's like, "I think I have the solution," and it's something very funny. And he is advocating for
Is it
old.
bleach?
It's
'Cause
not
it's always
bleach.
bleach.
It's
always
not bleach.
A-
It is
Ask Bob
old.
about bleach.
I have talked to Bob about bleach. Bleach is actually kind of cool, maybe, but yeah. It's old school wet dry trickle filters. So basically, his argument.
Every OG reefer right now is shaking their head.
Yeah. He's like, we got to bring him back.
Did he forget
old
the
is new again?
devastation?
Just besides the salt creep and the noise, besides that, it would grow a bunch of aerobic, like oxygen loving bacteria, which we typically don't grow in our tanks. And those are typically heterotrophs, meaning they break down and eat a ton of dissolved organic carbon and other bacteria. And they produce a lot of them tend to produce metabolites, which are inhibitory towards other bacterial families. So the question is, if we grow those bacteria, will they lower DOC to help balance out the whole system? And will they produce chemicals which kill the bad guys? And then you just have a trickle filter on your tank and it's done.
Well,
No
so the
water
moving
changes,
bed-
nothing.
Our moving bed bioreactor does the same thing, but it's cleaner and better, way better.
It has air exchange?
Yeah.
How does this work? Is it not like a
Absolutely.
normal like biopellet reactor? How does this function?
No, it's not a biopellet. It is a plastic biomedia, and it looks like those little wagon wheel pastas. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've seen those.
So it's
yeah,
got
I've
all
seen that
those
video.
little ridges on there, and the beauty of them
Say
is
pasta again.
hey, screw you.
Wagon wheel what?
It's a wagon wheel pasta.
Okay, go on. I think you showed me a video of someone's filtration room, and there was like 3 or 4 of these.
Yeah,
done.
for my Boston project.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
And I thought that it was a
Sent
lot
you
of
sneak peek.
biopellet reactors, and I was like, gosh, that's a lot.
No, I don't do the biopellets. But this media is really, really cool. It's aerated, so you get your aerobic. And it's constantly spinning and colliding with each other. So it does 2 things. When it collides, it's knocking off any detritus that may have gotten caught up in it, essentially self-cleaning. But it also knocks off dead or dying bacteria, making room for new bacteria, young, that's strong, healthy. So it's really, really cool. It's very interesting in how it works.
And that'd be a continual food source too. With and this is part of the debate we had originally about the role of how like biofilm sloughing off can be larger micron kind of packets of food. So that's the thing is, If you have that, maybe you don't need a low micron roller mat, and then you can have the benefit of just having continual food for everything in the system too. I don't know.
I just don't buy it because you still have to remove those solids before they become dissolved solids, right? That's before they dissolve in the system. The best way to treat it is to get it out.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, sure. I think
And so
200
you need your
micron.
mechanical for that. 200 micron does a pretty decent job for filter sock. I think if you have the luxury of going with a roller mat, you can get more aggressive.
I'm just saying that I think the way to fine tune that or make it like optimized to have both. Like, let's say you've got your reactor, you've got a wet dry filter, and you've got these biofilm pellets that are 5 micron or 10 micron. Then you have above that for your roller mat. You just don't grow that small on the roller mat. So you have like a 200 micron roller mat, you have a 100 micron roller mat, a 50 micron roller mat. As long as you're not touching the anywhere closer to the microbial realm of things, then you get the benefit of all of that food too. Best of both worlds. I don't know.
I don't know.
We got to test it. I need MRC equipment for the studio. This is what I'm saying.
What's the hesitation?
Having issues. Having issues. Can you do it?
Nicole, we got to call you.
Nicole.
That's Nicole. She said no. Sorry. I would totally do it, but Nicole said no.
Nicole, yeah, she pulled.
That is Lunar Reefs on Instagram, so yell at her. It's not me.
Oh, I know that, Nicole. I do know who that is. Okay.
Yeah.
She's legit.
Yeah, this is a real person.
Now she's gonna get blown up and be like, "You bastard."
Are there any other things that you may have changed your stance on in the past year?
No, pretty much the same.
Okay.
Pretty much the same.
Well, let's go down the UV rabbit hole for a second because this is very relevant to me. So if you're not familiar with the Red Sea 625 G2 Plus, I ended up with a purple tang that immediately showed ick in the system, as they do. Got real bad, like thought I was going to lose the fish, and was medicating the food and doing all the stuff, and it was still eating, and great, everybody's good. So I turned off the UV. Was having a little bit of issues with some STNing on coral, like some SPS acros that I had had. And after some conversations with some people in the hobby that will remain nameless, this person said, "Turn on your UV." And I was like, "Let's go." So I let it rip through the UV. So it wasn't a slow flow through the UV. So in my mind, I'm not nuking everything, right? It's a quicker flow through the UV. And the STNing is still kind of happening at this point. LPS is doing great. Softies are doing great. So the tank is, I think, overall healthy via ICP results, NDOC results, and aquabiomics results. But my Pelagibacter band on the aquabiomics test that I got went from like one of the biggest families of bacteria in my tank to now one of the smallest in the tank. So the recommendation that Salem had given me, and also I consulted with Andrew Balma a little bit, was turn off the UV and suck some detritus out, because another one of the larger families was
Rhodobacter ACA.
Rhodobacter. Is that what you said? Yeah, Rhodobacter ACA. So I got into the sump and sucked out some detritus there. So it's funny that we're talking about roller mats and micron size, because here I am just thinking that, the roller mat just catches everything. And there's just in the return pump section of the sump is just like, I don't know, maybe a quarter inch of detritus just like hanging out down there with some sponges and stuff. So I went and sucked all that out. But
and this is where that lower micron filtration would come in handy.
Yeah. I'm 4 days in after turning off the UV, and I think everything's good so far.
Nice.
But it'll be interesting to see if that Pelagibacter band grows over the next month.
It will. I was right about the last one, Remy.
But
I
what's
was
interesting,
right a year ago when I knew like a tenth of what I know now.
what's
But
interesting though is I didn't realize that Pelagibacter, because it's free swimming, it's in the water column. If it goes into contact with UV at all, it's gone. It's zapped.
Pretty
And there
much.
was still some in my tank. So that either indicates that the UV isn't working to what it's like, it's undersized, or it's not working, or the me ripping the flow through it, worked to some degree.
I don't
uh,
think the thing is though is you ripping the flow through it is also making it so you are not going to get that ick. To get anything protozoan, you have to have an even longer contact time.
Right.
So
yeah,
that means that you have just killed your microbiome and killed coral, but
for
also you
nothing.
did not solve the
Yeah.
problem. Yeah.
true.
That's the worst part. When you're
Typical
ripping through
obvious.
it, right, the way that UV works is it's damaging your DNA, right? And the intention isn't to actually kill that organism going through. It's to disrupt its reproductive cycle. It's to damage that DNA so that now it can't reproduce, and then the lifeline is gone after that. And when you go through it, you're ripping through it, all you're doing is, I don't know, maybe giving it a tan at best. And
The pink man turned brown.
That's
It really
right.
did.
That's right. There you go. See, exactly. And most of the hobby UVs don't have a very high UVC output anyway. And that's another thing that's missing on most of those products is people judge them by the input wattage, how much power they're consuming. But that's an irrelevant data point for a UV. The only thing that matters is the UVC output. And if your UV doesn't list that, you've got a proprietary blend issue. You don't know what you're getting. And so you can't just take a blanket statement, you need a 50 watt or a 20 watt or whatever watt. That's irrelevant.
You need the right spectrum bulb, baby.
That's it. You need the right UVC output. And then you'll find that some units are more efficient. They're able to put out more UV with 10 watts than somebody else's with 20 watts and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. I have a very popular 25 watt, $400-ish UV.
Name and shame, brother.
Mm-hmm. That's a good.
It failed.
I'm not going to do that.
That is a good UV if applied correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
Also
99% of them are not applied correctly.
I just want to add the person that turns your UV, convinced you to turn it on, consulted me about their microbiome, and they had the same issue, and I convinced them to turn it off. So,
okay. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better.
yep.
I think the other thing that I found interesting and might be a common misconception, and this is just me being naive to this section of the hobby, is that UV doesn't kill coral pathogen. Is that true?
It depends on the coral pathogen.
Yeah,
Depends on if
UV
it's
is gonna-
pelagic or not.
anything that goes through that UV is going to, have in contact or or is going to have UVC, right? It's going to be radiated, and it's indiscriminate. But your more complex organisms are going to need more radiation than your simpler ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's not killing Vibrio. Vibrio still showed up. Vibrio fortis, is that how you say that?
Well, I mean, you're ripping it through there, so I'm surprised. Not surprised at all.
Man.
yeah, they're therapeutic my ass, man. That is I need to write an article just about that term at this point.
You should.
Right.
You should.
Yes.
No, that's the thing though, is a lot of the coral pathogens or fish pathogens, not all of them are planktonic. They're not all in the water column. A lot of them live as biofilms on your filth. They like all of that carbon. So they like all the food. They're living on your detritus. So even if some shed off in the water column, you get them. You don't get all of them though. There's still some in the tank. So you're just nuking the good guys because there's not much. I mean, like I say, it's good for protozoan stuff with fish, brook, uranema, ick, any of that stuff that has like the trophozoite stage where it goes and swims about and infects the fish. It works there, but for any bacterial issues, most of your bad guys, not all, but most are on a surface. And you're killing the good guys, so you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot there. It's
This is good stuff because I feel like for the typical beginner to intermediate hobbyist, a lot of it is just, well, people told me to get a UV, so I got a UV and I put it on my tank and I turned it on.
Turn it off, people.
And that's pretty common anyway. Like you're checking off a box. I have a protein skimmer. I have a UV. And nobody ever mentions, well, this is what I have, and based on this system, right? They've just checked the box. They've got a protein skimmer. They've got a UV. They've got this reactor and whatnot. But having the proper tool is pretty important.
Yeah, tool for the job is what it is.
Right.
Well, then what would be the reasoning for you, Raj, to add UV into the sump? Like, you've actually built in UV sterilizers into the sump, and it seems like you do this on a lot of the builds. So
Yeah.
what's the reasoning behind that?
Well, so these are designed projects, right? Designed builds. So we have a lot of known quantities of things. So we know what size aquarium we're dealing with. We know what animals are going to be put in there. We know the flow rates because we're designing all of that. So we spec that UV accordingly. So your UVC output, your fluence rate is going to be set. Now, the beauty of it having it right there in the sump is there's no valves, there's no plumbing, there's no unit to mount, there's no potential leak points. And maintenance is super, super easy because it's right there. It's so accessible. And you're ensuring that 100% of the water that goes through that sump comes in contact with that UV. Generally, your UVs are on some sort of offshoot. Very rarely do you go just from a return pump through that UV because you're trying to control that flow that goes through it. So it's done with a side loop or a feed pump or anything like that, where 100% of your water volume isn't going through there. So there's a lot of advantages to go and do the in-sump like we do.
Would you say that more of your projects are fish based as opposed to coral or reef?
No, I mean, we do tons and tons of reefs. So, people want both. Why not have both? Why not have both corals and fish?
I would say if I was in the seat of one of Raj's clients and the price they're likely to spend on fish, that I would probably run a UV. Right? That's a very large investment in organisms which are usually going to be rare, very high end. And even if you have correct quarantine processes, this is a whole other conversation, but the quarantine for fish is certainly not perfect in this hobby. There can always be something that gets through. Coral can live without pelagibacter. They're more likely to get infected if they don't have it and have poorer health, but you're keeping soft corals, but then like $10,000 Japanese deepwater anthias, you should probably run a UV. It's a there's a high end there's a system at the studio we're going to put a bunch of high end fish in, and I'm just going to do softies and I'm going to run a UV on it because I don't want to kill the fish.
No matter what type of fish you have, if it's a large enough tank, the investment is large, right? But you fill that tank with these animals, you're going to spend a lot of money on it. So what it's going to cost you to get the correct UV, it's a small price to pay because it's a one-time cost too. Your lamps are going to be very, very inexpensive. You change them once a year. It's very, very simple. But what you're protecting is a lot.
Yeah, ozone is a weird one. That's like, it also seems to have a pretty negative effect on the microbiome, but I've seen a lot less data on ozone's ability to knock out any of the protozoan types of pathogens that'll affect fish. There's kind of anecdotal stuff, but
that's not the proper use for it. I know people try to do that, but that's not why you should use ozone. And I discourage most clients away from ozone because there's just other ways of accomplishing things. But there's a lot of systems that truly benefit from it. And sometimes you just get to that point where you just need a little bit of ozone, right? You've done all the things, and ozone is going to be that next step and the next piece of the puzzle.
And about all it does is it's going to, take out any visible tannins from the water and break up those aromatic compounds. Run enough carbon. If you run any of the types of adsorbent medias, like, the like Purigen by Seachem, for instance, even GFO, any of those medias are going to take that stuff out. So in my mind, it's like, I feel like there's better tools for the job. And I don't know, I feel like ozone is not really a good tool anywhere. You can always have a better tool that's going to affect the system in a way that's more advantageous towards its health, at least from what we understand now.
Well, ozone is a great tool. Don't get me wrong. I love the tool itself, if again applied properly and safely. The problem that I
Oh
have
yeah,
with
that.
ozone is it's dangerous, right? A lot can go wrong with it. Like, you really can't screw up carbon. You rinse it and you deploy it, and if you put too much, okay, well, you got too much carbon. If you didn't put enough, okay, you don't have enough carbon, right? Nothing really bad happens there. With ozone, if you overdo it, it can be catastrophic. And if you don't have the safety protocols in place, it can do damage to life outside of the aquarium. And that's my biggest concern with ozone.
And carbon fixes the same problem.
And
So
carbon,
it's
well, and if you're running ozone, then you need to also run carbon too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, why not just have a really nice carbon reactor? That's
You
why
can't. You
even
just
mess
need
with ozone.
you need a lot of carbon as you scale, right? So when you get to
Sure.
these larger aquariums, so let's just pick my Brazil project. It's a 10,000 gallon aquarium. Imagine how much carbon it's going to take to treat that tank, and then the ongoing upkeep and maintenance and cost of replacing that media. It becomes very expensive and very very labor um, intensive.
Hmm.
They should
How many
just add
millions is that house
kalkwasser.
worth?
What's that?
How many millions is that house worth?
Probably at least a couple.
What's a
Maybe.
carbon
I
to
mean,
a guy
it's,
like
it's
that?
millions, right? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But you have energy. I've switched to referring to things in how much energy it's going to take versus time, because I think energy is a little bit more powerful of a word to use with that, because sometimes it's not just time, it's your mental energy to put towards something. And if I look at my carbon reactor so I had 1,000 gallon reef and I had a pretty large carbon reactor, and I hated maintaining that thing, even though I would just shop vac it out and, was pretty lazy about the actual physical labor portion of it, but it was still a chore. Now, you look at the aquarium at Steinhardt, we've done some very, very large carbon reactors for them. We're talking, 2 feet diameter, and I think they were like 6 or 7 feet tall. Now,
Wow.
when you're changing the carbon in those, that's a whole other beast of a task. And when you guys have used carbon, it does not last very long. It gets
Yeah.
exhausted very, very quickly. And then if you leave it in there too long, it starts having the reverse effect, right? So it's not something that you truly can neglect. You have to maintain it. And that's just a lot of work.
I think dosing kalkwasser or any hydroxides as a buffer could have the same effect as ozone. You're adding free radicals to a system. You do that with any hydroxide. You could just add kalkwasser to these big systems.
Yeah,
To have
how
a
much
calc reactor.
how much calc are you going to have to dose in a 10,000 gallon aquarium for it
All
to
right,
have
so
the effect?
but think about the dosage rate of ozone per day. You don't need that much, right?
Well, but
So
that's it. If the rest of your system is designed well and it's good, then you don't need that much ozone.
I think I don't know, but you wouldn't need that much calc either if you're using calcium
Yeah, you
reactors,
would-
and
you
it's
would need-
cheap. I don't know. There's no risk
You would need a
to
lot.
need. Well,
Yeah, but
that's
what
probably
would
good
you
for other
consider?
reasons.
What would you consider a lot of ozone?
You'd have to think. It'd have to be like, okay, what system are we talking here? Like,
So
I
let's
don't know.
pick the
That's the
Brazil
thing.
project, right? It's
That's the
10,000
thing.
gallons. Like, what
We
would you
don't
dose
know.
them?
I guess we don't know. You know, like saturation point per gallon of when it has a negative effect on the microbiome.
Yeah, so
That's the thing, and there's not data
spec
there.
that one with 3 gram units, 3 grams of ozone an hour, right?
Mhm.
But I wouldn't be running it at full 3 grams. But that would be the max that it would top out at. So we're not
Then you would have
talking
just
about
like
a lot.
ORP redundancy and stuff on top
Oh,
of
yeah.
that, or
Oh, yeah.
what's the safety look
Oh,
like
yeah.
there?
There's a lot. Well, first you've got the ozone destruct, right? So it physically breaks those bonds. So all of your reaction is taking place in the protein skimmer in this case. So that's where the ozone is. By the time it leaves and is going back into the display, there should be 0 ozone left in that water. So the way that I would set it up is once the ozone has done its job, it's done. All those bonds are broken, and the water returned back into the aquarium is ozone free. And then your
Yeah.
safety protocols are all regarding that. Sure, you have ORP, but you have ambient ozone monitors and alarms. So if it's detecting ambient ozone in that, let's say, filtration room, it shuts the ozone off.
I got to think about how that would affect dissolved organic carbon. Because yeah, you're gonna be taking out some of it that would be visible. That's the refractory stuff. But I guess I don't know. You might increase that labile DOC still, because a lot of that would some of it might not be taken out by the skimmer. So you would take the refractory pool that would be visible, like the tannins and stuff, and then make it to where I think it would actually have a worse effect doing it that way, because then you would be directly feeding all the bad shit. I don't know. I think it has the same problem that ozone does still.
But that's why your protein skimmer pulls all that crap out.
But it doesn't. It only pulls out like 20% of it. Let's test it. Pay for me to get some chromatography stuff done. Let's test some skimmer
MRC.
stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
You had mentioned Kalkwasser and in a large system like that, and I just envisioned a giant pile of Kalkwasser next to the giant pile of creatine. Which white powder is this?
This one makes the Tums.
Has anybody tested creatine in an aquarium? Because we don't know what it could do.
Hey. Hey, I've been thinking about some stuff. You better keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
I do know of someone that doses caffeine. I do know about that. I have a buddy that doses caffeine. He's kind of off the beaten path.
Are his fish like the Kool-Aid man? Like they're just always running around trying to break out.
Like, dude, he's the most unorthodox. Like, dude, he's like, yeah, I've been carbon dosing and also potassium dosing at the same time. I'm like, okay, explain. He's like, so I take a banana in a blender and he adds a whole banana to the system. I'm like, dude.
He's just straight up doing a protein shake in there.
Yeah, he's doing everything's bulking, man.
I do want to before we wrap up, you had mentioned carbon dosing, and I think there are people out there and hobbyists out there that are like, well, what about that community science experiment that you guys were talking about? And it's happening right now, right?
Yeah.
All the candidates have their stuff, have their carbon sources, which is funny because you put a question mark on the side of these carbon sources, and a lot of them you could just smell it.
Smell
like,
it.
it's fine. And I have a sweet for myself. Yeah. But how is that going? Have we seen any kind of trends that you could reveal at this point? Anything you can reveal?
So the second data point, it's like a 3-step thing. So it's like, initial baseline of the microbiome and the DOC. And then we wait 2 weeks, do nothing to the tank, have complete control, no changes. And then we do a second one. That's the internal control. Then we carbon dose for 2 weeks at a calculation that I have for the dosage. And then they do a final one to see how it affects the DOC and the microbiome. And they test phosphates and nitrates as often as they can with a HANA checker as a standard. So we have not got any of the data back for what happens after carbon dosing. We just have the control right now, and it's consistent. Stuff stays the same. So
gotcha. Yeah,
it'll be done in 2 weeks, though. So
nice.
To kind of loop it all back around from the very beginning of this talk, we had kind of mentioned, well, we want a healthy microbiome. Well, do different carbon sources affect different families of bacteria in your tank? And so hopefully we'll get some sort of answer to that.
It'll probably be like end of November, because the actual experiment will be done in 2 weeks, and then it takes about a month or so for the actual aquabiomics results to get back. But I think that it is going to grow different families, but I think they're all going to be bad families. That is my prediction. I think carbon dosing is bad. I know there's a big company that has these claims of their proprietary blend of short versus long carbon chains. And I will say that of the hundreds of papers I have read, I have found no such claims in scientific literature. And that is all I will say. I will test it next.
Well, and I think this is so needed in the hobby, right? Having able-bodied hobbyists who are super interested in the cause of, helping our reef tanks flourish, and not hiding behind proprietary blends and all that. Let's figure this stuff out and let's work it out ourselves. We've got, like Sanjay says, a million monkeys in a barrel. Let's put them to work, and let's get some of this stuff figured out.
We did vodka, vinegar, and an amino acid blend. So we see what aminos do too.
Nice.
So, yeah, I think it's all going to be very evil.
Well, I think it's cool. I think it's cool that we're doing this. I think it's cool that you took it on. That's, some people didn't have the patience for it. They expected it to happen overnight, and that's just not how things work. But
it's hard to get 20 people shipped 10 tests each and then coordinate with all of them through an email chain that now has, I think, like 200 emails on it. Like it's Next experiment, we're going to do second one. And I'm going to look at biocidal stuff that's at home. So potential replacements for antibiotics. If we dose hydrogen peroxide, Bob Stark, if we dose bleach, can that selectively kill pathogens over good stuff? Maybe we don't need Cipro. Maybe we just need a little swig of some Dawn in the tank or something. We don't know.
Maybe some ivermectin.
Ivermectin, I saw a thread on Reef to Reef. People are using it now. So
yes,
yeah, it's a thing.
The worms.
It kills the worms.
It does.
The boring worms.
It does.
I have one more question before we wrap up here, and I know people have come to me, and I'm just kind of like, I'm associated with the stuff that you've been talking about. But over the past year, have you seen more hobbyists interested in learning more about the bacterial microbiome in their tanks?
Yeah, I get messages still about every day now. People ask me about it, or like they send me data to help them interpret and stuff like that. I've definitely seen an uptick of discussion. A lot of the big groups and other channels are talking about it now, so it seems to have inspired a lot of talk online. So it seems like we're going somewhere with it. Thanks for listening.
It's like only one piece of the puzzle too, right? We talked about protozoans and viruses, and
there's so much more to come.
Yeah, that make up a coral. So
wait until Reef Stock Denver. I have much to talk about.
Oh, I'll be at your talk.
It will not be recorded. Please buy a ticket to Reef Stock Denver. They're on live right now. reefstock.show.denver. Please buy.
Are tickets available right now?
Yes, they are.
Raj, can you buy tickets?
I didn't even know they were live yet.
That was a blatant lie, but thought I'd promote the show.
If you're interested, email Raj.
Yeah, they're not available.
We have his address here. You can show up at his door and ask him.
You can.
Reef Stock Denver is in a new location. We do know that the previous location is kind of bittersweet that we're out of there.
I hated
more
that place.
Sweet.
I sent Remy a picture of it 2 weeks ago.
Yes. Yeah. Why didn't you send it to me?
Crown Plaza. Dude, it's all ripped off the side. Yeah. The logo's off the side of it, and now it's
just the stain of the old letters.
Is it a shelter now? Is that what
it is? A homeless shelter now. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We're excited about the new location though. It's really, really nice, and it's much needed update and upgrade. So it's going to be really, really cool. I'm excited.
Yeah. I am too.
Yeah. Got plenty of time to book your trip to Denver to come on over. It's early March again, correct?
And it's always a good show. It's always a good time.
Yeah.
And it's always cold, so, bring warm clothes. I always tend to screw that up when I come out there. And then hydrate. I'm always dehydrated.
Yeah.
Can't drink enough water out there.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, we've got Reef Stock Denver coming up in March of next year. Maybe ask for that for Christmas or something.
We have Christmas plans too.
Before we derail any further, thank you so much for joining us on this session of Reef Therapy. If you've got any questions, you can always leave those down in the comments section below, and we will see you in the next one.
If you would like me to test all the things we talked about today at the studio, please heckle Raj in the comments, and Nicole as well, to send me MRC equipment.
Definitely, Nicole. March 1st and 2nd in Denver. We'll see you there.
Be there, be square.
That's right.
We're not going to wrap on B square.
Please, God, do it. I've tried it so many times.
All right. Well, then if you're gonna say it, then you need to
Put it with my chest.
All right.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And ready, go. I'm leaving all this in, by the way.
nice. Nice.
Please come to Reefstock Denver.
March 1st
Be
and
there.
2nd in Denver.
All right. So, okay.
One job.
You do the date. You do the
I do
date.
the
Just
date.
start with the date. Just start with the date. Okay.
Are you going to, so you're going to say
No,
that you got to say it, and then I chime in with the date, and then you do your lame ending.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got plans: Halloween, Christmas, Black Friday, and Reefstock Denver.
March 1st and 2nd, Denver.
Be there or be square.
I love how that bothers him so much.
I do too. That's why I wanted to do it.
A nice little ending on the, and then you just.
I want you to keep all of this. I want you to keep it all. Don't edit it. It'll be good.